Okay. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to our weekly community calls. So we've got a couple special guests here today. Lonus and Theo actually had reached out to me on Twitter, and they've been noticing a little bit of this kind of DeSci, decentralized science buzz that's been picking up, and a few teams have actually been kind of pushing a lot of their kind of organization through a platform called Dework, where you can organize a bunch of different bounties, have the community get involved, and then get compensated for the value that they're bringing to your platform. And so I'd like to introduce Lonis and Theo, who had talked to us a little bit, me and Patrick, a few weeks ago, and we thought it'd be great to have them give a demo of Dework, see what kind of capabilities there are, what things we can leverage, and they said that they would be happy to do a short like Q&A with us as well. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to them.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me and for having us. I very much apologize for the background noise. I'm at for a party here in Amsterdam where this is East Conference. But I'm super happy to be here and in chat. So some brief background, and then I'll just go through the product with you and get your feedback and thoughts. So yeah, like many here, I was previously DAO contributor myself. Contributed for 2 months at the City DAO, this DAO that bought land in Wyoming, where I was basically the first engineering contributor. And basically while contributing there, we kind of felt clearly the problems we had around managing our tasks and bounties in a like transparent way and efficient way, and also from the contributor perspectives, the problems people had around building their Web3 profile, basically, with their work history. So that's basically what Dework is an attempt at solving. And I'll just share my screen here now. So we basically started working on this around 4 or 5 months ago. We launched publicly around 10, 11 weeks ago. Yeah, since then we've become what I believe is the largest task and bounty platform for DAOs. So we have more than 6,000 created tasks and bounties, and more than 7,000 signed up users. Yeah, I just want to make sure, do everyone hear me at least okay, or is it a complete catastrophe?
That's good, it's good. We hear you.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so just to give you a sense on a very high level, we see 2 different kinds of use cases for Dework. We see, it's of course a grayscale, but some DAOs use it more for task tracking, and some use it more for bounty tracking and bounty management. So if we look at this DAO, for instance, before using Dework, they didn't have a good way of managing their bounties. Using Dework, they paid out hundreds of bounties for everything from writing code to doing Discord moderation and marketing. So if we look at another DAO like OpenDAO, they have very few bounties, so they mostly use Dework as a way of tracking their internal work in a transparent way that integrates deeply with GitHub and Discord, and also allows contributors to build their profile. So if we look at this person, for instance, here he has his profile with the work he's completed across DAOs. So your work history becomes this global state rather than this local state in the DMs, for instance. So that's on a high level. Of course, just to give you a sense of like how you set it up so far, anyone can basically go here. I just paste the link as well to see the board that's been set up for ResearchHub so far. There you can basically see a bunch of projects, and on the landing page you can also see this list of open tasks where yeah, you can basically submit work and get paid based on the quality of the work, and you can also apply to claim bounties to work on. So definitely recommend people do that, earn some ResearchHub tokens, and yeah, build their profiles. And just to give you a super quick sense of like the back, how it looks like on the back end, you basically easily can create this kind of projects that are like part of the DAO. And you can create these from scratch, or you can import existing stuff from Notion or Trello, or use the GitHub sync, which basically allows you to be in one-on-one sync with GitHub. So if you create a task in Dework, it creates an issue in GitHub. And when you merge the code, it moves the task to done in Dework and so forth. So you can basically use them in tandem. And here you can basically have a task like replicates paper X. And then you can basically add a bounty to this task if you wish to. So you can basically say, I want to add a payment method here, and I can basically pay with safe as usual. Support most EVM networks. And here you can just grab your Gnosis Safe contract address and connect there. And then choose which tokens to pay with. Of course, you'd want to pay usually with your own DAO-specific tokens as you've already set up. You can also pay with NFTs. And yeah, basically attach a bounty here. Yeah, if you have a volatile token, it might make sense to also peg to USD. So you can be sure of the value when you get paid out. Yeah, the thing and then when we create a task, we realized that we need to choose a gating option. So basically we have 4 different options, and this is like one of the critical ways we add value for DAOs that have more granular and different ways of working than, of course, traditional companies. So you can, of course, choose to manually assign yourself or others in the team. But you can also have this application process where anyone can apply. And that's, if we look at the bounties we put out so far, we see that this task, for instance, it's an applied application task. So here I need to apply and say, so I can basically apply, and then on the other end, I can basically get accepted. Yeah, if my work was good or whatever, or yeah, if my profile looks good. So that's one kind of bounty. The second kind of bounty would be this multiple submissions, which is more permissionless. So you just allow anyone to just submit, do the work, and get paid based on the quality. So you see here that you have a few of those bounties as well, where I don't really need to apply. I can just say, here's the work. And then you can like attach a link or a PDF or yeah, an arbitrary file really. So you can do that. And then the third kind of bounty, which I would encourage you to try out, is basically using Discord roles for the gating. So it's a combination. So it's basically what we basically do is that we import the Discord roles you have in your server currently to Dework and allow you to do permissioning based on those to allow for more autonomous work structures. So hopefully we'll get this to load. So basically what it will allow you to do is that you get rid of this application process, and you'll still just be able to say that if you have a certain Discord role, then you'll just be able to work on this task, no strings attached, basically. Because we trust you because you have this Discord role, and yeah, you effectively stake your Discord role in actually going through and completing the bounty, and not just abandon it, because then you might not keep your Discord role, if that makes sense. So here we've now imported the Discord roles, and here I can now say that if you're like a gold role, admin, a dev level 3, then you'll just be able to claim this task and work on it, um, because we trust you. You have these roles. And of course, if you don't have these roles, then you can still apply to the task. Does that make sense, or are there any questions or thoughts or feedback around that concept?
So I have a question for the multiple submission. So basically,
Sure.
I posted a bounty there last week, and basically I wanted to reward everyone that completed the task.
Right.
But like I got like 2 submission, so it was like multiple submissions. So you didn't really have to apply; you could just like submit your work. But then
Sure.
when I got into like the approve kind of like section, I approved one. I wanted to approve also the other, but that like wasn't possible. So
Yeah.
okay. So you can't really like pay out everyone that applied. Is there a way to pay out everyone that kind of like did the task, or what?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, there is a way. It is a bit of a workaround, but there is a way. So let's do that. We'll make this a multiple submission bounty, and then we'll just invite a contributor here. And here I can just say, here's my work. So I've now made the submission. Yeah, let's open it with another account as well. So basically what you would do is that you'll just, what basically you would do is you would do this workaround by assigning people to the subtasks. So you would basically create a winner or like not even winner, but just first payout, and yeah.
Okay, and then you assign each contribution to.
Correct, exactly.
Okay, yeah, great. Okay, yeah, thank you. That's kind of useful because we do like we could. I see that happening in the future again. Like we kind of like put out a bounty for many people to be completed and want to pay out everyone. So yeah, thank you. That's great.
Awesome.
Hey, Lonis, I was wondering if you can maybe touch on a little bit on kind of the idea of batch payouts. So I know Ethereum fees, which is what our token is running on, are kind of high sometimes. So how to go about like the batch payouts, and maybe also touch on a little bit of like how the Gnosis safe would be involved. So if we end up wanting to transfer ERC20 research coin, like how that mechanic works with the safe.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, let's just repeat a few tasks here. I'll just assign ourselves to both for now. So what we can do at the end of the week or at the end of the sprint or whatever is that we can batch pay all the bounties at once, and then it will basically just be the transaction cost of one transaction. So if you're a signer, you can just initiate the transaction from here. Sign it here. So now it's processing, and then the folks in the multi-sig will just go and sign as they always do in the transactions queue. So here we see less than a minute to go, and then we can execute these 2 bounties here, action 1 and action 2. They are bundled into one. So that's how that would work.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, that was kind of a big one for at least on like the end of like the admins who like want to organize and like be able to pay out, you know, with minimal fees.
Exactly.
Yeah, does anyone else have any questions for Lonis while we have him around? Yeah, if not, Lonis and Theo, thank you guys so much. I know you're out in Amsterdam right now for ETH Amsterdam, so if you want to get going, yeah, feel free to and enjoy your time over there.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And we're in your server, so if there are any like questions or thoughts or feedback, please just tag either me or Theo, and we'll answer ASAP.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you,
guys.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. So yeah, again, if you guys have any questions regarding that, you can ask, either Lonis or Theo. They're floating around in some of our servers, or feel free to message me as well. So if there's no other questions about that, we can move on to the next topic, which is going to be kind of this idea of like what are the pros and cons that you guys have felt with like Discord versus Slack, and maybe kind of what are some of your ideas moving forward on whether to keep a lot of the activity occurring on Slack or shift into Discord and have Slack be kind of a broader, more announcement type of style. So I'm interested to hear everybody's thoughts on that. Yeah, Edwin.
I don't know. I think Discord makes more sense when you have a lot more people. So I get like way more channels. And a lot of the channels, like the basic channels, are set up for things that larger groups of people might have questions about, I think. I don't know. That's just my sense of it, but I haven't reasoned that out. So
that's definitely how I think as well. I think like the customizability on Discord and the scalability for it makes a lot of sense. We can house a lot of the video channels and conferences and calls and stuff in there as well. And I think it'd be a little bit more of a centralized location. We have the option to do support tickets as well, which I think helps organize some of the bug reports or some of the other issues editors have had that have just been kind of DMing some people, and we have to reroute them somewhere else, and it'll be a nice, more central location for things like that.
So if we want to slowly transition into Discord, what do you think it's best to do, like as a practice with Slack? Like just keeping Slack, maybe trying to restrict the content that we put on Slack, just like maybe the most important announcement, so that people are kind of like, we can still get the updates on Slack, and then kind of like follow Discord if we want to get involved into working groups and so on. Also, like on a side note for this like working groups and stuff, I just want to remind you that it's really important that you all like introduce yourself in the dedicated channel, so that we can basically know what you want to do, what are your your skills, what are you how you think you could contribute to ResearchHub with the different activities. So as you said, now it's like we don't have a lot of people, so maybe Slack is even like easier to use for just because we used it for like the past 5-6 months. But as more people will flow in and maybe just use Discord for working groups and so on, it might make sense to shift completely into Discord and kind of like use Slack just for really important like updates for maybe editors that don't really want to get into Discord.
Yeah, and I think if someone just consistently like rerouted people from Slack to Discord, I think that'd probably do the trick.
So it makes sense to you also to kind of like only marketize Discord, like whenever you get into a call and people like ask you, hey, where can people reach you out? Should we like tell like both options? Should we just like mention Discord? What do you think it's better? Because right now we have a lot of activity on Slack, a little bit less in Discord, but I kind of see that in the future this roles kind of like swap. So it's good that we already start to redirect people directly on Discord, because in that way we'll have to reroute less people later.
This is definitely true since we're going to be adding a bunch more editors in the not too distant future. So we might as well just start getting used to it, rerouting people there. And yeah.
So one question I have, Do you think it's possible to just say, hey, everybody, we're moving completely over to Discord? Like, do you think there's going to be any like pushback from editors? Like, do you think anyone would just not want to use Discord at all? Because I kind of think we should just move over completely and like do a concerted effort to do it.
Yeah,
I agree.
Just easiest to just like push everyone off.
Is from the side of the like I guess Kobe and Patrick and Thomas, like from your end, I know you guys have been on like the bug reports all go to Slack and things like that. Are you guys fine with like a shift fully into Discord? Would that make your guys' life easier as well?
I think so. I like Slack, but it's mostly for convenience. We have our channels, we communicate, it's nice. But if everyone is on, it just sucks if we have like two different platforms. So we can make the shift to Discord. It's the same thing. No problem.
Okay. And then Nathan, I think your hand went up.
Yeah, I by the way, I'm completely on board with the shift to Discord. I'm just I was just trying to think of, is there any possible reason why you wouldn't want to do that? And just mainly just to play devil's advocate for a second. And I was just thinking, maybe, is there some hypothetical argument that and let's just say, elderly professors would find if they did make the discovery of ResearchHub, wanted to get involved in the mission, find something like Slack a bit more accessible than Discord? I don't know. I mean, it's not that there's any reason why they shouldn't find Discord accessible. It's just I can just see that happening. I don't know why.
Well, Slack has fewer options, so it's less confusing.
I think some people use like Slack within their labs just for like professional communication too. So it's kind of like they're already there, probably semi-familiar.
Yeah, that's right, Patrick. That's sort of what I was alluding to. I think Slack is seen as quite a professional tool, and then for whatever reason, in some circles, Discord might not be seen that way.
It is definitely simple, but it's also less like kind of interactive. Like there's so many things that you can do on Discord. It's crazy. Like with Jeff, we like set up, let's say 4 or 5 bots that do stuff for us, and they're just like so convenient. Honestly, they're like super convenient. So yeah, I see that. But I also see the point that I was using that for my lab in the US. We're using Slack, so I kind of like feel that.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what Nathan said, essentially, with like, I actually do prefer Slack, but overall I prefer having one channel over 2, which is the reason why I fully support like a shift to Discord. But like, for me, I've always seen Discord as something that, like, for example, most of my friends use it to play like video games. Like, my name on Discord is not like a professional name. I'm actually already considering changing it because of like ResearchHub. Like, my name is a little bit silly on Discord, and I feel like a lot of people's names are silly on Discord. I don't typically have my Discord notifications on because I have friends and like, who just like chat in it about random crap, like again, like throughout the day, whereas like Slack is all professional. So I think that like, at least for me, it's going to change my Discord habits, which is fine. But like, I think that's kind of where we are stuck, where Discord is definitely seen as less professional.
Yeah, on that note, Lynn, a couple things for that. You can one thing is you can actually change your nickname within a server. So your overall name,
really?
Yeah, whatever, but you can just change the nickname inside the ResearchHub.
Okay, I'll definitely do that.
Yeah, and then another thing too is they actually pushed an update recently where you can, just like in Twitter, you can switch through accounts. So if you want to have an account where you want to like, have fun with your friends and play games, and then another account that's maybe a more professional Discord account, you can seamlessly switch between those accounts very easily now.
Okay, awesome. I was not aware of that, so I'll definitely look into that.
Yep, yeah. And then I think, Ricardo, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, I was just like trying to answer the 2 questions that you answered. But also something else that I wanted to say, and I think this is important, at least for me. Most of the DeSci, actually, all of the DeSci communities are in Discord. So if we're looking into like kind of like integrating into that flow, into that kind of like movement, I think it's important to also be able to cross communicate with other DAOs and communities.
Also, the professors who are going to be trying to the first adapter professor is not going to be the old conservative ones, right? They're going to come in after the younger more experimental professors have come in and be like, oh, you can benefit from this platform.
Some of them might only use ResearchHub, honestly. Like, I see that happening. Like, I only use the platform. I don't want to talk to other people. It's totally fine. Like, you just want to upload papers, do the just use ResearchHub as a platform. And then there's other people, like, I don't know, us, for example, that want to like chat and exchange, information, comments with other people. So we might as well. But I totally second your point. Like, the people that we're looking at are most probably going to be fine with Discord, and others more traditional are just going to probably use the platform itself.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to try and move people over to Discord, like make a concerted effort, and then like just be conscious. Like if some people are like, "Hey, I'm not going to contribute because this isn't Slack," but yeah, I think you're right. Where most of the professors who would be contributing and like trying to earn bounties and stuff, like they probably play like World of Warcraft, and they know Discord. So, like, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think we're probably not going to lose out on like the Harvard MIT professor because we're using Discord instead of Slack. So I think it's cool to start moving over. I can, Jeff, I'll coordinate with you on how to best do it, but like I can start to message the Slack group and try and encourage people to move over.
Okay, yeah, that'll be perfect. And like I think it could be like kind of like a slow thing that maybe ramps up a little bit later, maybe over the course of the next couple weeks or something like that. So it's not just like an abrupt, hey, everyone, we're done. But yeah, that sounds good, Patrick.
Totally.
And actually, on that note, I'll pass it back to you. So, because the next topic we have here is going to be so these micro research coin kind of grants that Patrick had floated the idea around to me last week through message. And so, Patrick, if you want to kind of elaborate on some of those things.
Yeah, totally. So one thing I'm really excited about with ResearchHub is basically the ability to publish micro publications, for lack of a better word. So scientific content that's not in the form of a scientific paper, kind of like smaller bits of research outputs. And so I always thought it would be like pretty incredible if we could somehow start to like, I guess, generate a database of single experiments where like people just get one experimental result, share the methods for how it was done, and then the results, and maybe like one figure to make it look cool. And so one of the things that we can do now, thanks to like all the hard work that's gone into setting up the Uniswap marketplace, is we could give like kind of micro grants in RSC to researchers, like in the size of like $300 to $500 USD, something that won't cause like significant slippage on Uniswap, but will allow like a grad student to run like a cool experiment and then like type up the methods they used and share it on ResearchHub as an ELN post. And so this to me is like very cool, like for two reasons. One is that we'll have original content. Well, one, we'll be like supporting people actually making science, which is a gigantic step in my mind. And like there'll be original content being shared to ResearchHub in a format that like, I don't know, you can really like share it in many other places. So to me, that's very cool. And then the second thing is to start to show precedent that you can fund research using ResearchCoin. So it can start out as like very small, like single experiments, but over time, I think we'll be able to like show it's compelling that you can give people these like ResearchCoin grants and they'll be able to turn it into like reagents and materials used in experiment in order to like actually produce some kind of like unit of knowledge. And so, yeah, I think like, first of all, curious if you guys are excited about an idea like that. And then if so, like within all of your given fields, like how much money do you think you'd need in order to like run one experiment that's like mildly interesting to people on the outside? Like maybe it's like a RNA-seq or something like that. Yeah, just curious what everybody thinks they would need, like US dollar wise, in order to produce one result that could be published independently and also like be interesting enough to make people stay on the page for a second and try and understand what's going on. Ricardo?
Okay, yeah. So first of all, very excited about the idea. It's great, actually. I think it's a really great idea. A couple of questions that I have. The first one is, if we're talking microgrants, at least in my discipline, that is like wet chemistry, kind of like wet lab stuff, I could see that being used for like, for example, reagents. A couple of reagents, a couple of materials, and you want to do a specific test and you just do the test. But that would also mean that you should already have the equipment to do the experiment, and that means that you're in a lab and you maybe have a PI that you're using the equipment for that research that is, let's say, published on ResearchHub. How do you think we could deal with that? Is there any workaround, or we should just focus on, I don't know, maybe social sciences or other kind of sciences that do not involve wet practices?
Yeah, so in my mind, I think we would want to limit it to editors, essentially, like people who are already involved in the community and like we already built a relationship with first. So I guess like kind of pushing that question back to you, Ricardo, like in theory, would your PI be okay with that? Or do you think that they would have an issue with you sharing like some, experimental result that you like derived on ResearchHub?
That's a good question. I don't know, because I never thought about this, but yeah, probably depends on the PI. Depend how flexible maybe your research is, because maybe if you want to do a small experiment, maybe it makes sense to do something like isolated for a specific purpose. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely something that we could maybe find a couple of people that could be interested, and just like talking to their PI and see which one approves the activity and go forward with that as a first example.
Yeah, totally. And so the other kind of interesting part about this is we've released the new reward algorithm late last week. So now more research coin are being distributed based on upvotes. And so if there's a novel piece of like research content that's shared to the ELN, I imagine it would get a lot of upvotes. So it's almost like it could be a source of, like future resources for the lab or whoever shared it, based on the research coin it actually earned as a post itself. So yeah, I think there's a lot of like cool ways that this could kind of like start a culture of people sharing content, with the goal of like earning research, like investing in like content in order to earn more based on how many upvotes it got. I guess Nathan?
Yeah, I've thought of one use case where this could work, and it could actually work in sort of integrated with the Dework bounties as well, which is that if people are familiar with systematic reviews and meta-analyses, a lot of that work doesn't require research infrastructure, in the sense that you're looking at, especially if it's tabular meta-analysis, you're looking at existing studies that have been published. And really, the amount of work is churning through many studies and applying a set protocol that you've developed beforehand to all these studies. Now, in theory, you could decentralize a meta-analysis in the sense that you could come up with a protocol, publish that protocol, and then make Dework bounties for each paper that people went through, if that makes sense. And then they all submit it together, and then you could have essentially a shared meta-analysis on a topic.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I like that a lot. Like Dework bounties for shared work on a research output is super cool.
I'm wondering, just like logistically, so for example, if say I am a student, a grad student in a PI's lab, and I personally receive research coin through my account, and then I go to Uniswap and I swap it to USDC, and I wanted to go buy like some kind of reagent with that. Like, do I, as the student, have to network with like business operations at my university to say, hey, I'd like to use my, I don't know, my Coinbase debit card that has my USDC on it. I'd like to use that for purchasing. Am I allowed to do that? Is that like infringing on like the funds of the like the PI? Does the PI need to go through those things? Should a whole lab have an account on ResearchHub as opposed to individuals, so that the whole lab can earn research coin or value from the micro publication? I guess those are like some things that are top of mind.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think like this is where like the like infrastructure of doing this kind of funding could get complicated. And like I think it's worth trying to find out where the hiccups will be, so that way we can like address them eventually. I'm not sure if anybody would be like willing to like introduce us to their PI, like pitching this idea just to hear like their reservations or hesitations about the concept. Because yeah, I do think it'll probably be a little bit more complicated than just giving someone, X research coin to do something, and like trying to figure out where those like hitches in the process are. I think it's worthwhile to do that exploration because it could be pretty cool in the future if we have like significant resources behind the coin.
Yeah,
Edward?
I'm just curious. When we start talking about, getting that kind of traffic, the amount of money we have on Uniswap, I don't know what it is, but the what we have on Uniswap right now is useful, but like I hear no talk about the tokenomics, I guess, like longer term, what gives research coin value. I mean, I don't know if you guys are thinking about it at all. And I mean, it seems like you probably are if you're talking about it, but I'm just completely clueless on that regard. And I wonder if that's something, um, I'm curious basically.
Yeah, so to me, like we got some feedback from one of Jeff's friends the other day that like there's no real like buy side pressure for research coin at the moment. Like there's a couple of like, like weak utility use cases. But to me, like the most compelling reason to have a coin for a DeSci project is for funding research projects. Like it's a gigantic marketplace where like really good researchers have trouble getting funding. And so if you could do it in a better way, kind of like we think about fast grants a lot, the way they were able to fund COVID research studies with just like a 5 paragraph Google form. And then you'd have an answer on your grant like turned around within 2 weeks rather than like the typical like, 6 to 8 months of like a NIH type of grant application. And so, yeah, it seems like it would be like very reasonable to try and disrupt like the grant funding system, both like nonprofits and kind of government grants. And so sort of the concept behind this idea here is taking the first step towards giving that utility to research coin. Like, hey, if you want to fund a research study, you don't need to give your money to Susan G. Komen and put it into a black box where you're not really sure where it's going and like, you don't really know how much of it's actually going to the researcher. What you can do instead is buy some research coin and send it to the person that you actually want to do the research study that you're interested in. And so, yeah, I think like the reason why this is interesting, I think on a small scale, like not, hundreds of thousands of dollars, like just like $300 to $500, what we can manage right now with our liquidity is that we'll run into the roadblocks and start to figure them out. And so it's like almost like an exercise of can we do this? And like if we, 300, $500, it's not a lot of money in terms of like academic science. But if we can prove that like reliably we're able to give out these micro grants and actually have content come out of it, all of a sudden research coin has utility as like a way to fund science, which is a whole lot of buy side pressure in theory, like when you look at like the research funding marketplace in general. And so, yeah, I think like the big picture reason why research coin, would bring a lot of utility to science is helping to fund research projects. And that's like a lot like easier said than done. And so to me, it's worthwhile to start exploring like, if we do this, how do we do it? What are the roadblocks? How do we get around them? Like, how do we make it easy for the average person who wants to donate to Susan G. Komen to instead come to ResearchHub and just fund breast cancer research like themselves, basically?
Okay.
Jeff?
Yeah, I think it's like a compelling argument. I think that like the pain point that's going to pop up is going to be that if you use research coin to fund, like if someone buys research coin to help support somebody through a grant that they want to fund, then that person then receives research coin and then immediately will have to liquidate it. So whoever bought it is going to have someone on the other end that's just going to liquidate it immediately to be able to buy whatever things that they need to have bought. So if we go down that route for research coin, then we need to be able to either allow research coin to be used directly for like paying of reagents, or allow research coin to be used as collateral, where you can take out like a USD loan off of it, so you can use that as well, like for paying for the reagents. So I think like that's probably like especially at scale is going to be like kind of difficult. And what I would think would be a little bit better maybe would be if we used something like USD or USDC for paying of like the funding and the grants, but we integrate ResearchCoin as a way to govern maybe which grants people believe should receive the funding, or govern how much money would go towards certain, for example.
How valuable is governance over that? I mean, first of all, you'd be talking about having to, be administering quite a lot of money for governance of that pot to have substantial value, right? You'd have to the market cap, or not, the amount of USDC that we would have to be able to allocate for governance of that to be. I mean, I suppose it would be over a period of time. People could speculate over that, but for the governance token to actually have any kind of reasonable value, I would think that you would have to have substantial, volume in that. I would think that you would want more utility than that, just like off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's tough because the value of ResearchCoin is going to fluctuate, and so if I received a grant of 10,000 ResearchCoin, and then the next day my ResearchCoin was valued, half of what it is on the day that I received it, that's also difficult for like paying for your reagents or paying for a travel grant to do something. Yeah, Nathan?
I'm just thinking in the initial stage where I guess what this is sounding like is we're trying to find what product market fit for ResearchCoin at the moment, right? That's what we're trying to do. And I think at the start, might it be worth exploring the niches where traditional funding doesn't seem to really cut it? So for example, at the moment, traditional funding is really linked to research output in traditional journals. And then you look at, well, what can you not publish so well in research journals? Well, you can't publish methods so well. They don't do so well in terms of citation score, etc. Your negative findings, they don't do so well. Is there a way in which we could incentivize those, typically neglected areas that a lab will still be doing, that they have the data for, that they could publish? And we could say, actually, you could get paid ResearchCoin to publish that on ResearchHub. And then we just need to find a way of making that interesting for readers on ResearchHub.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can totally do that. I guess in my mind, the step process is like we do a small grant with like a grad student who has a PI. Like we figure out the hiccups that come out of that, right? And then once we feel comfortable with like the process, that we know how to handle like the roadblocks that come out of like trying to fund research, then we start to target like negative studies, or like we have a relationship with a quantum biology lab, right, where they can't get funding from the NIH or NSF, but they have like private people who are interested in them. So yeah, I guess like I feel like this is very early stages in my mind. The idea is not fully formed at all, and like I want to spend time like exploring it and figuring out like where the problems will be and ironing them out, so that way we can eventually like target like these niche fields of science that actually do need like a new way to get research funding. Does that make sense as like order of operations in your mind? Yeah, Nathan?
Yeah, absolutely, Patrick. I mean, it makes total sense to me. Like at this stage, we really should be, exploring all avenues and really just working out, where the bumps in the road are, etc. I was just thinking, as part of that sort of exploratory initial mission, so to speak, have we thought about having discussions with traditional academic funders and asking them, what their challenges are and what are their frustrations when they're actually, working within the existing system, and where they think it could be improved on?
I had done some customer research like 2 years ago, like a very long time ago, and spoke to like CZI and like Wellcome Trust and a couple of them. And they were more excited about like the ability to like get research funding to people outside of academia. But you're absolutely right. Like doing more customer research, like with individuals, who would actually want to buy research coin and potentially support stuff is pretty important. So yeah, we definitely need to do that if we want to like attract that kind of money to research coin eventually.
Is there a way? Do you think is there a way to kind of like include like foundations that maybe want to get research coin to kind of like share the upside with like what is done with those research coins, kind of like sort of like investment into the platform and what is done on the platform? Do you think there's something that could be explored in that sense with some foundations that maybe don't, I don't know, could like use ResearchHub to get more content out? I don't know.
I mean, I absolutely think so. We have to be like careful about how we position it because things like shared upside, stuff like that, like it's like, yeah, it's better to be like pitching a way to fund research than necessarily like, yeah, we just have to be careful about how we say it officially. But yes, absolutely. I think it makes a ton of sense. And I think that like when I spoke with CZI years ago for the first thing I was working on, that's kind of how they saw it as well. Like it was like, yeah, shared upside with the ability to use it for something, a couple of years down the road. But yeah, absolutely. I think like forward thinking, like funders would absolutely be into that. I think like the Foresight Institute, like they do a good job of doing like kind of small grants. And I bet that they have scientists they would want to support and like they, are familiar with us and our mission, kind of like the long-term goals. So yes, totally. If we're very careful about how we like market it, then for sure.
Okay, so just for the sake of time, since we have about 10 minutes to go, we have one final topic, and that is another one from Patrick, and I'll let him elaborate as well, but this will be kind of trying to stress test the ELN feature to see just how many people can be on one ELN, shared ELN, and how many people and what you can post that can still be sustained by that by the ELN.
Yeah, so the goal here is Ricardo and Anton Bauman have been working hard trying to put together like a SciComm hackathon, for lack of a better term, where we're essentially going to get a bunch of people to have like a competition about like basically sharing their own research outputs, like blogs about like different topics they're interested in, and then videos about like their own research. And so I'm not sure if everybody here is on a computer, but it'd be cool if we could all try and get onto the same ELN note and like all try and type in at once just to see if it like has the ability to support multiple people at once using the platform. So I think everybody here is invited to the editor ELN organization. There's like an outreach strategy, which is at the top of mine. I'll share a link here. Yeah, a couple people jumping in now. I'll put it in the chat here too. I guess, Kobe, is there anything specific that you think we should do to try and like break the ELN here?
I think just trying to edit at the same time would be very nice.
Cool. Yeah, it looks like we've got like 6 or 7 people in there now. Thank you, guys.
I think not everyone is invited. I don't know if I'm invited myself because I'm getting a 4 or 3.
Okay, I'll invite you, Kobe.
I don't think I am.
Okay, I'll invite you guys. Let me grab this.
Maybe you can copy, Joyce, the in Google Calendar, you can like copy. There's like a button to copy like all the emails.
Oh yeah, good call.
And
Seems to work fine. The only thing is that it's probably kind of a little bit kind of slow to reload when you kind of like reload, but apart from that, looks good.
Yeah, Pat and Thomas seem pretty confident that we'd be able to handle a whole bunch of people on it. So, I mean, to me, if we have like 6 people in a note, like that's pretty good. Like, I don't think that'll happen. Like that many people in one note. Ricardo, what do you think?
Yeah, so something that I noticed when I was working with Anton on this is when he was on the page, it was difficult for me to, not really difficult, but like when I was switching between pages within a workspace, sometimes I was clicking to the other page and I was getting the blank page with no error. And I was kind of like reloading and the kind of like the load symbol was kind of like keep on spinning. That happened a couple of times. But right now it's not happening. Like it's loading just fine. So maybe could have been just a problem that occurred that day. So yeah, I think it's a good practice to kind of like every once in a while meet and stress test the ELN to see any update. What could that bring?
It seems to be working pretty well. So yeah, thanks everybody for jumping in. And if you ever notice any issues with this, let us know, because we plan on, I think, trying to use it a lot more over the next month or two. And so yeah, the more issues we find, the better we'll be for when we actually have like a bunch of grad students coming in trying to create content.
Okay, well, yeah, so that's like everything that was on the itinerary for the day. Is there any other topics anyone wants to bring up or anything miscellaneous that we can do in the last 5 minutes or so?
I'm just curious, Pat, what are some of the limitations that you guys have run into because of securities regulations?
Oh yeah, I mean, infinity of them. Like you just have to be ridiculously careful all the time and not really have any clarity on like what you can and can't do. It's funny because we've even had like we've been working with the same law firm for the last 3 years, and they like one of their crypto specialists ends up getting hired by FTX as their like general counsel, and then the second one ended up getting hired by another cool company, and the recommendations change with each attorney who's advising us. So yeah, it's just there's a real lack of clarity on what you can and can't do, what you can and can't say. And so like even with our tokenomics stuff, like yeah, just the advice has changed a lot over the past like 2 or 3 years. And so like, if you want to like get on a non-recorded call, I'd be happy to like go into a little bit more detail around it. But yeah, the legal situation around like how you try and like, de-risk your token from a securities perspective is like pretty complicated. But like at the end of the day, it comes down to Howey's test, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Is like there's like 4 prongs.
Yeah.
One of the prongs.
Yeah. So I'll be posting about this later, but a friend of mine is working with a company that I actually think found a way around most of those. And I was just curious the extent to which that was a problem for us. But yeah, cool.
It's one of those things where it's like you can never know, because like they choose enforcement actions kind of like 2 or 3 years down the road. So like
no, they actually went to the SEC and some other regulatory bodies like the Spanish central bank and talked to them about it, and they agreed with them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'll post about it later.
Very cool. Yeah, that'd be super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I guess for the last 5 minutes, does anybody have any other feedback or ideas for us to think about over the next week or two?
Oh, also the NFT thing. When are we setting up like a structured conversation for that?
So NFTs, we're building a peer review feature right now, which should be shipped sometime in the next like 2 to 4 weeks. And so after that would be NFTs when we start thinking about like things from like a design product perspective. So yeah, I would probably not in the next 2 weeks, maybe at the end of the following sprint, and then after a month, definitely. So yeah, if you have ideas, feel free to ping me, and like would definitely jump on a call and start brainstorming. But like we'll start doing like official product thoughts and designs probably in about a month.
Okay, cool.
Malik?
Yeah, while we are on the topic about legal counsel, I just wanted to revisit something that I had asked, when I had first joined ResearchHub like a few months ago. At this point, is like if I share like an abstract only from an article that is not open access. I just shared the abstract, and then all of a sudden there is a discussion going on that, and there is like tokens exchange back and forth, like for good, comments and stuff. I mean, right now we have only like, few articles per, like, I mean, my hub is really small, dermatology, like, there are a few articles, and if anybody, says, oh, this cannot be posted, then we can remove it. But like once down the line, a year, 2 year down the line, when there will be like thousands of papers, do you foresee like any of the big publication houses like causing any trouble, because it is like abstract is like openly available, but we are using it quote unquote for commercial, like because we're getting tokens. Do you get my question?
Yeah, totally. And so my current understanding is that sharing abstracts fall under something called fair use, which is, since the journal essentially shares it openly before a paywall, others are allowed to do that as well. Things that wouldn't qualify under this are like figures, like if figures aren't exposed before the paywall. So in theory, my understanding is that abstracts are fair game because journals essentially like show them before they have a paywall. In the future, I think it's definitely likely that a journal might try and like get us in trouble legally. What would happen there is we have like a DMCA takedown request. So like on YouTube, right? Like when you try and upload a video, they automatically scan to see if there's any copyright violation. And if there is, the copyright holder can basically ping YouTube and say, hey, you need to take this down via DMCA request. And so that's the process of what would happen at ResearchHub. And like ResearchHub is the one responsible for taking it down. So we have that within our help section right now, that like if a copyright holder wanted us to take down a paper, we have the infrastructure for that and we can do it. We're obviously like proactively not trying to violate any copyright laws though. So yeah, with that being said, my understanding is abstracts are totally fair game, and that there are a bunch of websites right now that are openly sharing abstracts of like paywalled content.
Oh, thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, Nick.
Patrick, your answer actually just covered what I was going to ask, so you're good.
Well, do you mind saying it anyway, though, just so I can get a temperature of like what people are thinking about?
Yeah, that's what I was just curious about, the just in the future with money being exchanged hands, because of a paper that may be posted on a journal, the implications of that once this platform grows a lot. So pretty much similar to Malik's concern. Just in that, just making sure that's something we, when we do expand more and more and more, it's something we would run into.
So just to reiterate, to make sure I've got it, now I'll check with our attorneys. In theory, like there's a concern that fair use may not apply if there's like financial value being exchanged because of the content.
Yeah. I've heard of, I don't know how broad the language is on what is fair use and what isn't, and whether there could be some sort of technicality that we could run into that because of that.
Yeah, I think it's probably worth being very safe there. So I'll run this past our attorneys and get back to you guys with like the paragraph that they send back explaining it.
Okay, great.
All right. Well, that's about the end of the time. So thank you everyone for coming in for this week, and we'll have another one next week. And I believe that's going to be the one with the answer review. So that one will be an exciting one. All right, everyone. Have a good one.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye, everyone.